So now the time has come to turn my attention back to this mini disc player. I got all the pieces today in the mail that I was looking for. A couple of electrolytic capacitors and a Zener diode to replace the one that I found open. Thanks to, again, to YouTube user The Tech Knight for guiding me along the way and helping me to better understand the power circuits that drive the display in this Sony mini disc player. And hopefully that's all the trouble there is. I go ahead and replace these components, fix up a little more of the bad soldering I found on the board here, and hopefully this thing will live again. The only trouble is I bought some mini discs and I left them at work, so I guess I'm going to have to run up there and grab them real quick. But I'm going to go ahead and reinstall all of those components right there. See what happens. And there's one of the capacitors installed. And here are all the parts installed in their rightful locations. 3 new capacitors, 1 new Zener diode here at D308, 5.6 volt, 1 watt type. Sony actually used a much smaller part. Get that on here and you can just kind of compare the size between what's on the board now and what it replaced. And it wouldn't surprise me, given that this is a soft-off design. In other words, the transformer is always supplying power, and it's just the logic that drops into a lower power usage state. If that little diode wasn't sitting there bearing the brunt of keeping the filaments in the display heated at all times, and after many years of use, it just finally pooped out. So hopefully by choosing a slightly heavier part, it'll live longer and live happier. Now for the audio outputs. Some of you have asked to see me solder something, and I'm going to tell you right now, I am none too proud of my soldering skills, and I suppose that my method is not impeccable. And any of the actual real engineers and technicians that watch this channel are probably going to laugh their heads off. But since some of you have asked, I guess I'll go ahead and I'll show you just how it is that I'm going to solder these pieces back on as best I can. You can definitely see that I shake, but there you have it. Here's the first power up after all those repairs. I have absolutely no idea what will happen here, but I'm definitely hoping. So just bend down here and plug this in. And it's off right now. Let's turn it on and see if we get a display. Nothing. I'll tell you what, folks, this mini disc player has more or less dogged me every step of the way. Went to the trouble of replacing that little Zener diode down there, powered up, no display. Turns out I think I got a dud diode. So now I've installed another one, tested it before I installed it to make sure that it wasn't open circuit like the other one. Gonna put this thing back together and give it another try. Maybe this will be the charm, I don't know. Here's how it stands right now. I've still got no display. I don't really have the voltages I expect to see at the filament terminals, and quite frankly I'm running out of ideas here. This thing is making me feel kind of stupid at this point. So I don't know what's going on with it. If I'm going to use it at all, at this point I may just use it without the display functional, and I really don't care. But if anybody's got a thought or a suggestion, a comment, condolences maybe, or hoots of derision, feel free to send them this way. I'll certainly be looking for them. I've got some other news too. This is the Sanyo RD W89 stereo double cassette deck that was paired along with the Technics RSM218. And I started to take a look at this thing because, number one, neither deck would auto-reverse, and number two, deck B would not keep its heads engaged. You'd press play, the heads would come up, and then they'd immediately fall right back down again with a loud clunk. Well, I got deck B out of the unit. It's sitting right here, and I'm afraid that something fatal has probably happened to deck B, because there's a number of gears in there that appear to be responsible for the the task of driving the heads up and down, and it seems that those gears are sheared. I don't know what happened to it to encourage that. But the other problem is, this is just kind of, in my opinion, after looking at this thing's design, this cassette deck is nothing too special. In fact, I think I would be right in calling it a piece of black plastic crap, because serviceability is next to impossible. If you look here, cassette deck A is still in the unit and functions as well as it ever did. The problem is that the auto-reversing mechanism is actually driven by a separate belt coming off of the main motor back here. And the belt has completely rotted away, hence the reason why the auto-reverse function doesn't work at all. Now, it would be easily possible to replace that belt, but in order to do that, it looks to me like a person has got to get this sandwich apart. And after experimenting on the trashed deck B, I just don't see a way of doing that without destroying things in the process. And I am not going to put the money into what basically amounted to a $2.50 cassette deck that isn't that great to start with anyway. So I think this one is probably just going off to the electronics recycler after I've stripped it for any interesting parts. So there you have it. That's the status of the various electronic repairs so far. You win some and you lose some, I guess.